So imagine World War II has just ended with the horrible nuclear attacks on the towns of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, and in the United States, a disheartened Albert Einstein wonders aloud, wouldn't it be great if just once we could gather the best scientific minds in America in one place for a reason other than creating weapons? Now imagine the United States Department of Defense hears this and says, yes, that would be great, and we'd be willing to bankroll that on the condition that you continue to develop weapons for us, and while you're doing so, we'll fund any other peripheral research you might be interested in doing. You can have your great scientific utopia, and you can work on all the other projects you want to. But if you continue to build weapons for us, we'll bankroll the whole thing. At which point Albert Einstein says, no thank you. But a large number of other American geniuses say yes. And so is born the fictional town of Eureka. Some 60 years later, United States Federal Marshal Jack Carter, played by Colin Ferguson, is transporting his troubled teen daughter Zoe, played by Jordan Henson, through the woods of Oregon when their car breaks down. They find themselves in the town of Eureka. Yes, the same Eureka that was built on the ideas of Albert Einstein and the gathering of the great scientific minds. There, he finds himself involved in a missing persons case. Despite the fact that the town and all of its denizens do not want his help, and they actively look down upon him since everyone in the town is literally a genius, and he clearly is not, they actively try to stop him from helping in the investigation. Jack, however, seems to also be looking down on them, since he is the only one in the town who is actually a professional investigator, and he solves the case. He needs help with all the sciencey bits. This being a science fiction show, there's a little bit more going on than simply a missing person. But it is largely through the efforts of Jack and his investigative skill that the case is solved. This brings him to the attention of the town's current sheriff, who decides to retire and get the Department of Defense to hire Jack as his replacement. And now Jack Carter, who is not a genius, is the sheriff of a town that is full of geniuses. And so goes our show. The rest of the primary cast of the show is rounded out by Dr. Allison Blake, played by Sally Richardson Whitfield, as originally the liaison between the town and the Department of Defense, and Dr. Henry Deacon, played by Joe Morton, as the only scientist in town who has kept with Einstein's original idea of never developing weapons, even if it will get you the funding to build whatever else you want. And Josephine, or Joe Lupo, Carter's deputy, played by Erica Serra, a former United States Army Ranger. The Department of Defense's interests in Eureka are represented by Global Dynamics, a massive research facility where levels 1 through 4 essentially keep faith with Einstein's idea and develop all manner of scientific wonders to help better the world, or simply to research things that are freaky and cool. Then there's Section 5. Section 5 is the super secret weapons laboratory, where all manner of devious and sometimes downright unethical research is carried out under the watchful eye and with the funding and constant interference of the Department of Defense. On the upside, Eureka maintains a satisfying balance between the science fiction adventure and the comedy. With literally every discipline of science, real or imagined, at its disposal, Eureka never really has to repeat an idea, and the show maintains a fresh originality from start to finish. The performances by the principal cast are fantastic, and in a show that gives so much time and effort to the comedy, you'd be surprised how often each of the actors are given a very real emotional moment to play, as well as how often, when they're given such a moment, they do a really, really good job with it. The downside: Jack Carter's original presentation as the slightly cocky but extremely competent investigator was somewhat more interesting than his portrayal as the everyman, fish out of water, non genius in the pit of geniuses that he became for the rest of the show. The second version of him isn't bad, he's quite relatable, and that's actually why they made the change. They needed someone for the viewers to latch on to, other than all of these geniuses running around, and so they made that Jack. But it would have been interesting if he had maintained a little bit more of his original presentation. Joe Lupo, for the entire run of the show, is used as more of a sidekick for Jack. Given how good an actress she is and how strong of a character she really is, she would have made a better partner. It would have been more interesting to see her play Jack's equal in every way, and have her been much more central to the show. Perhaps think a Scully to the Fox Mulder. It would have been very interesting to have her moved a little bit more to the front. She certainly could have handled it as an actress, and she certainly could have handled it as a character. And now we get to Neil Grayson's Douglas Fargo. Fargo is a character who was originally put there as almost a human version of Stimpy. He's the guy that cannot resist pushing the shiny red candy-like button. Almost every time he's in a story, he's either the cause of the problem or he helps make it worse. He's a genius scientist like everyone else in Eureka, but he's also a clumsy klutz. I never like the character who's there just to make you laugh, especially in a show when every other character has their comic moments and every other character is fully capable of handling the comedic aspect of the show. A character who's only there for the comedic aspect of the show is completely wasted. He's unnecessary. Everyone else can handle what he's doing fine. In seasons 4 and 5, they finally figured that out, and they began to give the character of Douglas Fargo much more to do, at which point I decided that I just liked the guy. Douglas Fargo in seasons 4 and 5 is one of my favorite characters of the show. But before that, he is definitely on the downside. In conclusion, Eureka is simply a fun show to watch. Like Doctor Who, like Stargate, it's not the most serious show out there. It's not the most emotionally engaging, although when it tries to be, it succeeds quite well. It's simply fun and entertaining, and that's what it was made to be. It's popcorn science fiction without being Starship Troopers with all the gore and blood and violence. It is a show that I have to give, despite the fact that I gave it as many negatives, it's close to being a 5-star show. It's actually probably a 4.5-star show, but in my rating system I don't give half stars, so it's got to be a 4. I want to give it that 5. I like it that much. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna give it that 5. It's a 4.5 star show that if I have to pick and choose between 4 stars and 5 stars, I've got to give it 5 because I do love this show. Eureka is one of my favorite science fiction shows of all time, so 5 stars.